Hey you guys, happy Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you guys find this video a little bit informative. I'm actually going to be doing the first segment of what I call is My Family Life Easy Sew projects that people can actually do at home. But before I actually get into what I'm going to be doing as far as the project itself, I just want to go over some general information about things that you can do in preparation of when you're actually going to do a sewing or crafting project. The first thing that I like to have on hand with me is my cutting board. This is my friend. This is my Perfect Sew or Sew Perfect cutting board. It spreads out to be a 36 by 72 inch cutting board. It's made of cardboard. You can actually pin this board or your fabric down to this board, and it works so well. The thing that I love about it is on the front, it's so informative. It gives you all of the information that you would need, even down to the measurements when you're actually doing sewing or crafting projects. So it's a great tool to have. Something else that I found to be very important when you're doing projects would be always keep a yardstick. Yardsticks are 36 inches in width. They are so great to have. Even if you don't use these yourself, at least have one in your home for kids when they're in grade school, and they can really, really learn a lot from this, especially when they're doing measurements in school. So I would say keep one of these when you're doing your home or crafting projects. I like to take around with me when I'm doing crafting or sewing projects. I like to take with me my own tape measure. This is what I call my buddy. She stays in my purse all the time because I never know when I may want to kind of run across something and I want to do some type of crafting project or sewing project. A lot of times people have issues with breakage when it comes to their needles. Knowing the weight or your fabric weight and the type of needles that you use and the needle size is so important. Your needle must coincide with the weight of your fabric. A lot of times people think that it's actually tension in your machine when you're using your sewing machine that continually causes your needles to jam and your bobbin. A lot of times it's just the fabric weight and it's just your needle. So get kind of familiar over time with sewing and knowing how to actually select the right needle when you're doing a sewing project. Another thing also is the thread. Your thread is so important when you're doing a sewing project. This also can cause breakage. It can cause your bobbins to get jammed. People will think again that it's tension, but it's the tension on the thread based on the weight of your fabric. So getting familiar with knowing what weight to use and what type of thread to use when you're doing a project is also great. A lot of times when I am actually finishing off projects, I'll get me a pack of these little things. These are a set of needles that you can buy either at the dollar store or in any fabric department or fabric store. And these were just an old package I got maybe from the dollar store for $1. It says $1. Simplicity needles. It carries a series of multi-purpose needles that you can use for several things. A lot of times we would actually use this in the hair business, one of these needles, which was the hook, to actually do our wig units or our sew-ins. So I would recommend people go to your fabric or crafting store, get you a set of these. Great, 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 great needles to have. Okay? The next thing I would recommend is when you're actually cutting material, the type of utensils that you guys use is so important. Having the right shears or cutting scissors when you're cutting fabric based on its weight makes a difference. I love this particular brand of actual shears or cutting scissors because it actually has a cushion handle. And when I'm cutting the bulky fabric, it doesn't cause my fingers to cramp up. Great, great tool to have. So keep that in mind whenever you're doing any sewing or crafting project. Now, a lot of times the biggest issue that people have when it actually comes to sewing is knowing how to select material or fabric. I'm going to go over that with you guys. A lot of times fabric is sold in its width, but we purchase it by the yardage based on what we're actually going to do or be needing the fabric for. So the fabric that I bought came from Hobby Lobby. Maybe I could have gotten it from someplace and they would have sold it to me on the double fold, but I'm glad not. I actually like where I got it, but I like the fabric itself. Now this is sewed what we call a single fold. Single fold is, or single width, is when you actually have your interior portion of your fabric. This is the inside. This goes to the cushion itself. And this is your exterior portion. This actually is going to be the outer covering of the actual cushion that I'm going to cover. So when I actually purchased this, they actually stretched it out on its single fold, and then I had to give them the measurement as far as yardage, and I actually purchased 1.5 yards for the type of cushion that I'm going to be using, which basically this leather pleather or whatever, it actually was basically what was originally on the cushion. But now there are times when you have fabric or fabric projects or crafting projects that will actually require that you purchase your fabric double fold. That means that this fabric is actually folded over. It's actually folded over, and it's actually put together, and it actually forms a seam on one side of the fabric. A lot of times when you're doing sewing projects, making clothing or something of that nature, it will require that you cut that pattern on the fold, and it'll normally tell you to cut it on the fold. So over a period of time when you're doing certain projects or you're sewing certain things, you will know when you need to cut your fabric on the fold. But knowing exactly how many yards of fabric when you're actually having to cut something on the fold, it is actually so important, because you want to make sure that you got enough fabric or material when you're doing any project that will actually complete the project, and you don't have to stop or go out and get extra fabric just to do that. So please keep all of those things in mind. My next thing is I am going to be covering a love seat sofa sleeper cushion, and it is actually one cushion, one big long cushion. I'm going to keep the back portion of the cushion. I'm also going to keep the zipper portion of the cushion, because the zipper is actually 44 inches long. I'm going to replace the front facing, the left and the right side facing of the cushion, and the frontal portion, which is the front lower portion, which is also the facing of the cushion. I'm going to replace those. And the reason why I wanted to keep the zipper, because the zipper is actually still in really, really good, it's in excellent condition, so I don't need to change that. And I really don't need to change the back portion. But now let me just say this. Anytime you're doing a project and you feel the need to actually go in and change the cushion, if the cushion itself is still firm, once you sit on it, it doesn't sag in the center, or if you still got that same firmness, don't change the cushion. Actually, if you could, wrap that in batting. Don't use polyfill. Polyfill is used basically for pillows or redoing pillows or something of that, but not necessarily cushions. I would just say if you don't want to replace the whole cushion, use the batting. That will allow you to wrap the whole entire cushion, and then you could actually take that route, and it will allow you that little bit of firmness that you may be looking for. A lot of times people like to add just a little bit of extra trim to whatever sewing projects that they may be doing, but a lot of times we call that doing the piping or the cording. And I'm going to show you, because a lot of people don't know what that is. That is whenever you're sewing something and you actually see, say for instance, the trim that is actually on your pillows, that little portion that comes and sticks out on the side that looks like an extra piece, but it's actually into the fabric. I actually covered this pillow myself, so this actually is the cording or piping that people actually do sometimes to give it just a little bit of extra something whenever they're actually completing a project like this. I will not be adding this. The thing is, you have to know how much extra fabric you need when you're doing your cording or your piping, and this also has to fit the way that you need it to fit perfectly within your adding it to whatever project you're doing. So once you flip it inside out and do your stuffing and your closure, you have to make sure that you got that exactly intact and got it right when you're going to do a project like that. But if you have questions that you'd like to ask me about doing that, feel free to do so in the comment section. I would like to just say right now, thank you guys so much for watching. If you do once again have questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section, and I promise you guys I will respond. Until segment 2, I would like to say love, peace, and blessings to all of you, and good night. Thank you.